Alrighty, welcome to this video. Here's the last project of the course. It's not going to be too bad. It's kind of a smaller one, but it's kind of cool, I think. So what we're going to create is a Google map that shows the location of the International Space Station. We talked about it a few weeks ago when we displayed who's on there and everything, but now we're actually going to use the API of Google Maps, and we're going to use it with the API of the International Space Station, and then we'll combine the two to be able to have a map that shows exactly where the International Space Station is at that moment in time. Like most of the assignments, you can style this as wanted. You know, I'm kind of grading more on functionality here and then instead of what it looks like. So the first thing we have to do is we need to get a Google Map API key, and then we have to grab the API that we're going to use for the International Space Station. So what you need to do is go to console.developers.google.com. Okay. Pause it if you want, whatever. This is where you're going to go. And this is where you have to create a project and then set up an API, and then you'll get the API key. So what you need to do here is click on this little drop down. Okay, and then up here you're going to do create a project. So this project, I'll call it Google. I mean, I kind of already did this when I was playing around, but I'll just do another one. So Google Map ISS. Actually, I'll just say do what I had before, call it version 2. And you can have 10 projects. So hit create. All right, so once you've created the project, it's going to take a few seconds here to show up. There we go. So there it is. So what you want to do here is select it. So I'm going to select it. And then we have to enable APIs and services on that project. So I'm going to just type in maps. And there's a bunch of Google Map APIs. There's embed APIs, SDK, JavaScript, time zone, geocoding. Geocoding's crazy. Geocoding is how you can type in like an address and get the latitude and longitude. Yeah, convert between addresses and geographical coordinates. So that's pretty cool to be able to do. We don't need that for this. All we need is just JavaScript API. So the Google Maps JavaScript API is what we want. We're going to click enable. Give it a couple seconds here to do its thing. By the way, I guess I didn't really say it. When you go to console.developers.google.com, make sure you log in with your Google account. That should be kind of obvious. All right, so anyways, we enabled the JavaScript Google Map API, so now we're going to create credentials, and this is what's going to give us the API key. So I'll just say, what credentials do I need? Click on that, and then there is the API key. All right, so I'm going to keep that up. I'm going to open up brackets here. Okay, close out of this stuff. Okay, file new. Okay, and I'm going to, on my desktop, I'm just going to create a folder, I'm going to just call ISS, International Space Station, and I'll save it up there. Okay, and I'm just going to call this index. We're only going to have one HTML file. It's not going to be too bad. So index.html, and I'm just going to have everything in here. I'm going to do my styling, coding, and everything all in here. I got this little plugin. It's called HTML Skeleton. I'm going to create a basic HTML skeleton here. I just don't want to type all that out. I can do it in my sleep by now. And I will say ISS location for my title. Okay. Now the first thing we got to do is embed the Google Map API script tag, basically, that's going to allow us to do all the Google Map stuff. So we're going to put this right at the bottom of, like right above the closing body tag. And we're going to say async and defer, which is going to make it load after everything else has been loaded, is basically what those do. And the source is going to be https://maps.googleapis/maps/API/JS. I'm sure I could copy and paste this somewhere, but oh well. Okay, question mark there, not ampersand, and then key equals, and then we're going to throw in the Google Map key, API key that I got. So throw that in there, and we'll close out the script tag. So this is going to bring in all the API commands and stuff that we're going to need from Google Maps. So maps, I just got to double check that, make sure I didn't spell that wrong or anything. Maps API/JS key, boom. All right, so that should be good. So that's really all we need to do on the Google Maps side. Created the credentials, we're good, we got the key, so I'm just going to hit done here. There it is. So really I'm kind of good on the Google Maps API side of things. The next thing I need to do is go to opennotify.org. We used this a few weeks ago, right? We used the number of people in space, we're using that, but this is what we're going to use now, is the current location of the International Space Station. So I'm going to click on that. Okay, and this is what we're going to use, the JSON file. So if I open this in a new tab here, we can see that it gives us the latitude and longitude. It gives us the timestamp, which is last was updated, but this thing is updates like every second or even faster. I'm not really sure how quickly it updates, but you'll see in the map that it continuously updates, because if I refresh the page, 4176, 4175, 4175.6, 4275.45, you know, I mean, I'm sitting here refreshing, and every time I refresh, it's different. So this is continuously updating. So I don't really need a last updated because it's updating multiple times a second. So that'll be obvious, especially the way we make it. Okay, so I'm going to keep this open too because this is the JSON file that I'm going to use for the API. All right, so later I'm going to style this. For now, I'm just going to get it to work. So I'll just create style tags. I'm mainly going to position things, to be honest. All right, so I'm going to create a div, give it a class title. I'm going to say current location. Current location of International Space Station. Okay, so that's going to be my title. Next, I'm going to create a div, and I'm going to call it class of location. I'm going to give it an ID of loc because I'm going to need to pull that in the JavaScript. And I'm going to it's going to be an empty div. So with JavaScript, I'm going to fill in the latitude and longitude. So basically, I'm going to pull these values here and stick them in my app. Okay. All right, so that's really it for the content. Yeah, I guess let's move that over. So now I'm going to create another div, and I'm going to say ID of map. And this is going to be where I load the Google Map into. This is going to be the div that I load the Google Map into. All right, so HTML-wise, that's basically it. Now I just need to script this out and write all the JavaScript that we need to be able to load everything. Oh, there is one other thing I need to do. We need jQuery. Because jQuery has a really sweet function that gives us the JSON data very easily. So I Google jQuery Google, just like always, and I go down to the jQuery, and I'm going to grab the 3.0 snippet. And I'm going to throw it inside of All right, jQuery is loaded. All right, now I can come down here and start writing my script. So the jQuery function here is get JSON, and this does all the stringify and all the parsing and everything we need so we can immediately start using the JSON data. So I really like that. Okay, so the JSON data that we're getting is from here. right? So I'm going to grab that, copy it, throw it into here. Okay, and the way this works in jQuery is once we grab it, we need to run a function. So I'm going to run a function, and I'm going to pass data into it, and data is going to hold all of the jQuery, or all of the JSON data. Okay, so it's pretty similar to P5 and how it works, but it goes out, grabs the JSON, and then it takes all the JSON data and then throws it inside of data. So now I can do the same thing that I've been doing all these other weeks, is I can say data.iss_position.latitude to get the latitude. Data.iss_position.longitude, that will give us the longitude, and so forth. But those are the only two things we're going to use. We're not going to use the timestamp for the message. Okay, but it all has to be inside of this function, right? Okay. So I'm going to set up some variables. So latitude is going to be equal to data.iss_position.latitude. Latitude. And just to make sure I'm pulling it correctly, I'm going to alert the lat. Okay, so we're going to run it because I don't want to go too far if it's not even working the way it should. All right, cool. So it pulled it correctly, -49.9382. So that's good. So it's pulling it correctly. Okay, do the same thing, set up another variable, ISS_position.longitude. Okay, and I'm going to alert that just to make sure I didn't misspell anything. Okay, looks like we're good. Maybe. -50.48. Okay, cool. I wasn't sure it was right because they were both 48, but I guess at this moment in time, that's fine. All right, now here's the thing that's kind of interesting. If I were to say, let's go alert latitude plus longitude. Okay, now see how it actually didn't do the numerical addition to it? It just took the latitude and it added right after it the longitude. So what does this tell us? This is telling us that these are actually strings. Okay, these aren't considered numbers right now. When we pull these from JSON, the data from JSON, it's treating these as strings, like characters, not actual numbers. And that's actually going to turn into a problem here in a while. But I'm not going to fix that yet. I'm going to go down here and we're going to kind of do some more things, and then I'll show you the error you get, and then I'll show you how to fix it. Okay, so it's pulling the data, but it's treating them as strings. It's not treating them as numbers. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is say document.getElement. Well, I guess I could do the jQuery selector. Oh well. Let's see, we're going to grab the ID of loc, right up here. And we're going to change the inner HTML, which is the text in between the tags basically. So if I had ASDF right here, the inner HTML of this div is ASDF. So this property is what you use to be able to put things on a web page using JavaScript. It's one of the ways you can do that. So the inner HTML is going to be equal to latitude space plus lat. Okay, and then I'm going to add a break tag. Then longitude is going to be space long. Okay, so I'm just printing that out to the page is all I'm doing right now. Okay, and there it goes, and it's working. As I refresh, it's changing. Okay, so that's all I'm doing is printing it out to page so I can put it somewhere on the map where people can see it. Okay, now I'm going to set up the Google Maps stuff. So I'm going to say variable location. Okay, and the location, I'm going to create a little object here. And the object is going to be, this is something that Google Map is expecting. So when I make a location object for Google Map, it wants to know the lat and the long. Okay, so I'm saying this is the Google Map variable that it's expecting, or I guess not variable, but the Google Map key, and this is the value that it's expecting. Okay, so it's expecting lat, and I'm giving it a number using the variable lat from up here. But remember, this isn't a number, so we are going to run into an issue. Okay, and then it wants the longitude with LNG, and I'm going to give it to him with long. Okay, so now that I've set up that variable, I can now create the map. So I'm going to store it inside of this variable called map, and I'm going to say new google.maps.map. Okay, and then it wants to know where am I going to put this map. I'm going to say document.getElement by ID. And we're putting it inside of this div right here. So we're going to do getElement by ID map. It knows to put it in there. And now it needs some values. Okay, and there's a bunch of values that the API for Google Maps will accept, but the first, really all we're going to have is zoom 3. This is my first value, and each value is separated with a comma here. And the center of the map is going to be location. If you remember, location is right up here. So the center of this Google map, the place that it's going to center on, is the information that we're pulling from the JSON data, the JSON API. Because lat is pulling it from the API, and long is pulling it from the API. So we've set up that location that it wants, and we've said, okay, Google Maps, center yourself on that location that is using the JSON data. Okay, so let's save it and see what happens. Okay, so I'm going to refresh here. It's not loading. I hit F12, and then we start getting issues. It says invalid value error. Set center, not a latlang or latlang literal, and property lat, not a number. So to be honest, most of this stuff I'm like, okay, but then when I saw this error say not a number, it made me go, oh, okay. And then that's when I went in and I tried the alert with the plus, and it took the two strings and put them together instead of actually adding them up. So I was like, okay, so they're not numbers, and Google Maps is freaking out about that. So what we can do is just use this built-in command that JavaScript has, and it's called parse float. And what this does is it takes what's returned from the JSON data, it takes this number that comes back as a string, and it just converts it to a number. So now lat and long are now going to be parse float, and that will convert these strings into a number. Now there's two ways you can parse. You can parse float and you can parse int. The main difference is parse floating allows floating numbers, which is decimals. So 2.5, because these are coming back as decimal numbers, right? So if I save these, I guess we can take a look at what it does. So when I parse int, right, I don't get any decimals, but when I parse float, I do. So that's the main difference here. So we do definitely want to parse float. All right, so now that error goes away. Happy days. Oops. Okay, come back here. Okay, so now the next thing we need to do is create a marker. The marker is just that little, I don't know, marker, the marker that you see on the map, the little pointer thing that shows you where the location is. So now I created, well, I didn't create, I went out and got my own. I got this one right here. This is what I want to use as the marker on the map. So I'm going to copy that and put it, oh, and I probably should have that be part of the assignment too, if I haven't already. Yeah, I kind of did, but I need to make sure that you guys know it needs to be custom. So have a custom marker. There we go. All right, so come down here and we're going to say var marker. It's going to be equal to a new google.maps marker. Okay, the position of the marker is going to be location, right? It's using the same variable up here. The map that it's going to use is the map stored inside the map variable. Okay, and I could, I think, just stop right here. I may have done something wrong. Because I thought the map would be showing up by now, but it's not. So I'm going to keep going and we'll see. But I think, usually you can just do this, but if you want to have it be your own custom marker, you're going to put in another property called icon. And inside of there, you're going to put in the URL for it, which is ss.png, comma, and scaled size is going to let us make it however big or small we want it to be. So new google.maps.size, and I found that kind of 60 pixels by 60 pixels works pretty good. Okay, now, it might be that it's not online, so I'm going to try that really quick. It's weird though because it was working for me last night. So actually, let me just kill all this. Start it back up in live preview. Nope, but let's see in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to log in, go into public, I'll just put it in here. So we will throw ISS in there. I just know there's been times where I've been playing with Google Maps and sometimes they work locally, sometimes they don't. It's really kind of weird. Let me check my key. Seems to look all right. Well, let's see. So those1kids.com/ISS. Then nada. Mix panel, that's fine. Okay, well, I just need to make sure I'm not crazy, so I'm going to pause it really quick while I take a look, and then I will be back. Yep, I'm an idiot. So it's kind of simple, actually. So the div with the ID of map doesn't have a height or a width, so it's not showing up. So I'm pretty sure that's the problem. So I'm going to come in here to the style, and I'm going to style app the ID of map. So I have the ID of map here, but it's not showing up. So like I said, I'm pretty dang sure this is why. So I'm going to say margin 0 auto to center it. I'm going to give it a height of 500 pixels. I may mess with that later. We'll say width of 70% of the browser window. All right, let's take a look. There we go. Boo. Yeah. So there it is. It's working now. Holy crap, everything's huge. Especially that. Holy crap. crap. So let me go shrink this down a little bit. Yeah, about 400, that looks good. The marker though is like insanely huge. I wonder if I typed that wrong. Scaled size, new Google Maps dot size. Maybe it is working and it's just huge. I don't know. Let's see. 20 by 20. Nope. Yep, there it is. Well, that totally worked before, so I don't know. It all looks fine to me. Well, I'm gonna have to come back to that one because well, no, I'm just gonna pause it until I figure it out. So I will be back when I figure it out. Yeah, guys, you probably saw this before I paused. This kind of stuff kills me. So I have scaled sized for some reason. Scale size is what it should be. There we go. And it's teeny. Don't want it to be teeny. Wait, make sure I'm recording. I am. Okay. So, yep, I'm going to put this at 60 again, because 60 seemed to be kind of a good size. Yep, I think that's a pretty good size. Okay, so let me style this up a little bit, and then we'll move on from there. So I'm going to style up, I can get rid of that, the ASDF, that shouldn't really be there anymore. So I'm going to style up title and location, just kind of get them in a spot where I want them to be. All right, so title. Okay, position absolute. No, you know what? I know some of you guys are good with the CSS stuff, so I'm not going to do that yet. I'm going to do all this stuff that maybe you're not too familiar with first, and then we'll do the CSS at the end, just kind of like we did in the other video. All right, so this is great. You know, everything's working the way I wanted to, but the problem is I have to kind of refresh every time I want to see where it's at, right? So I have to refresh, then see where it's at. Refresh, see where it's at. Well, I kind of think it would be cool if I didn't have to refresh the page every time, and also I don't want to refresh the whole page. I think it'd be really cool if I could just have the marker move to where the space station is at that time. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do, is make it so just every 3, 4, 5 seconds, whatever you decide, this icon here, the marker, will just kind of go to where it is after 4 or 5 seconds or 3 seconds or whatever you decide. And this will also make it so you don't have to refresh the page every time, because that can get really annoying, because sometimes if you go to like the satellite view or the terrain view and things like that, it'll mess all that up if you just refresh. So this actually took a while to figure out. So you have to use this thing called pan to. So P-A-N-T-O. In other words, pan to a certain position on the map. So I can tell it to, when a certain event happens, I can have this marker pan to wherever the station is currently. Where before we could have it just refresh. There's this thing called set interval, where you can say at a certain interval it'll just run a certain function, and that's what we're going to do. So come down here underneath marker, and I'm going to say map.addEvent, or no, it's just add a listener. Okay, if you look at the Google Maps API, I can say add listener. Google Maps is actually where I found it and figured out how to do it. But if you take a look, Google Maps have all these events that they can look for. And this is a really cool thing where it'll highlight what happened. So when I mouse over, it'll highlight mouse over because that's the event that just took place. So mouse over and mouse move. So whenever I move the mouse, that can be an event, and you can do something with that event. When I mouse out, it says mouse out. When I zoom, it'll say zoom changed. Tiles loaded is basically when you reload the tiles or when they load for the first time, and tiles loaded is going to be the one that we use. So you can use all these events, and then using these events, you can use the pan to. Because I tried and tried and tried and tried to use pan to, and it never worked. And then I saw it in here, and what this does is just after 3 seconds, it'll just go back to the center of wherever the marker is. And I found that as you use pan to inside of these event listeners, it actually worked. Where before it would just say pan to is not a function, and it was just really annoying. So this is how I got it to work, and it ended up working pretty well. So the listener that we're going to have is tiles loaded. Like I said, that's going to be the event that we're listening for, or in other words, when the map loads. That's going to be, it'll, oh, did I just kill it? Yeah, maybe I did. Nope. So when the map first loads, so when I don't know if it'll show this, but when I refresh, you can see that tiles loaded fired off. So did tilt changed, so did a bunch of other things, but basically I just want tiles loaded. That's just when the thing loads the first time. And did I spell it right? Tiles loaded. Tiles loaded. Okay, perfect. So when the map loads, I'm going to run a function. Okay, I'm not using any data or anything in this function here. Okay, and so what I'm going to use now is set interval. A set interval is a way that you can count and do stuff with JavaScript after a certain amount of time. A really good example here is W3 has a really good example here. So when I click the button, it's going to run the function myFunction. And what it does is it sets up this interval, and it's going to run this function that says alert hello, and it's going to run that every 3 seconds. Okay, so this is kind of in milliseconds. So 3,000 milliseconds is 3 seconds. So you hit try it, maybe. Okay, geez, that was weird. Oh, that is one thing about set interval that's supposedly really bad, is it can stack, and then to hurry and to catch up, it'll do it again. Yeah, so let's refresh this again and see if it works a little bit better. So hit try it. Oh, after 3 seconds it comes up. 2, 3, boom. Plays again. 1, 2, 3, comes up again. So set interval, it will wait that 3 seconds, and then it runs that function alert hello, or after you hit try it. So you hit try it, then you got to wait 3 seconds, and then it runs the function. You hit OK, it waits another 3 seconds, runs the function, and it just goes forever. So we're going to use this set interval to be able to say every certain amount of seconds, load the JSON data, and then take the marker and tell it to go to wherever the International Space Station is at that time. Okay, so I do need to say set interval. Okay, and the first thing that set interval wants is the function, and then how long it waits in between to run that function. So I'm going to create another function inside of here. Oh, these tabs kill me sometimes. All right, so the function that I want to run every 3, 4, 5 seconds is going to be inside of this set interval. Okay, and set interval doesn't run until tiles is loaded. Well, tiles loaded is when the map loads. Okay, so I'm just going to have to kind of do a lot of this again. So I'm actually just going to copy and paste this. And I'm going to throw it in here. love how it just does all the tabbing so beautifully. Okay, now you may be like, wait a minute, you already used lat and long, so you can't use those same variables. Well, yeah, I can, because we're talking about, we talked about it in the other video, the scope of variables, right? Because this is inside of this function in here, it doesn't really exist anywhere else. So if I try to use lat and long outside of this function, it won't work. Same thing in here. Inside of here, lat and long exist, but if I try to use it outside of this function, it won't work. So lat and long only exist inside of this function, so using them in here and using them in these two different functions isn't going to conflict. It's not going to break anything. All right, so the first time it loads it, right? So this is the first time it loads the data, puts it in the div, sets up the map, puts everything the way the map needs to be. Then, once the map is created, I'm going to add a listener to the map, which is tiles loaded. So when the map loads, it's going to run another function, and inside of that function is a set interval function, which is going to run however many times I define. Okay, let's see, and the function, okay, oh, this is the set interval, so I want to tab that over, and this is the JSON, so I'm going to tab that over, put these in the right spot. So the way the set interval function works is the first thing it needs to know is the function, so that's the first parameter, so I put all that in there as the first parameter, and then it needs to know how long it's going to wait in between each time to run these. So I'll just say 3 for now. So the 3 seconds. Okay, now, so every 3 seconds, it's going to reload the JSON data, re-upload lat and long, okay, and then it's going to put in the new information inside of that loc inner HTML thing. So let's take a look here. Okay, 48, it doesn't like. I think I'm going to play with that later. I actually think it's okay. We will see. All right. So I should kind of move that over. There we go, because that's inside. Okay. So anyways, so we're going to set that all up again. All right, throw that in there. Actually, I am going to need to figure out why that's not working. Save it. Unexpected end of input on 48. Oh, okay. So the JSON here it's not ending correctly. So that ended marker. That's ending that. Okay, so it looks like this JSON function is not ending correctly. Okay, that's fine. So we should be able to easily fix that. Bring that over. Boom. Should be okay now. Yep. Okay. We have that main JSON function. Closes down here. See, and this is why tabs get so dang important, that you tab everything correctly. All right, good. All right, so everything is in this JSON function here. Then we get all these other functions inside of here. Okay, that should be good. Let's bring that up. All right, let's take a look. Okay, so now every 3 seconds, this should update, which it is. We can also, the cool thing is the page isn't reloading. The only thing that's reloading is it's just going out there and pulling the JSON data again, and it's not, because up here, right, is where it creates the map and everything, and we don't want it to create the map every 3 seconds. If we had this stuff inside of here, inside of this set interval, the map would reload every 3 seconds, and it would get a little annoying. Actually, I do wonder if it will. No, it doesn't yet, and so it doesn't screw with the map. So if I have satellite, if I have map, if I do these different things, it's not going to mess with that. Okay, so now the only point here is, so if I refresh, it puts it there. Now the latitude and longitude are updating, but this is not. It's not moving. It's not going to the new location. Right, so that's where we use the pan to. So I come here. I'm going to say map.pan2, and it needs to know where to go. Now in a perfect world, I could just say lat and long, right? Well, maybe it is a perfect world. Nope. Then it freaks out and it says, lat lang literal, not an object, blah, blah, blah. So that's telling me that it wants an object, okay, a JavaScript object. It doesn't want 2 values. It wants the actual object. And if you're going, what the heck, remember over here, when we fed in a position, we fed in a JavaScript object. So it's kind of the same thing with pan2. Pan2 wants the same thing. So really, we could just take this object and copy and paste it in there, but I'm not going to do that because that's horrible. So I'm going to throw that object in there. So lat is going to be lat, and longitude, long, is going to be long. Okay, and then close out the object. And then that should make pan2 happy, we hope. All right, now on this video, yeah, I can see it moving barely. But the cool thing is now the map is updating automatically without the map refreshing. It's automatically updating and taking you with the International Space Station as it's cruising around. Now one thing I thought is, oh, I could just up the amount of seconds. Oh, excuse me, that was kind of gross. I can up the amount of seconds, and then it'll have more of a movement. So I upped it to 12 seconds here. We can kind of wait, and yeah, this probably isn't going to come over very well on the recording. But I mean, it kind of moved, but it wasn't like a big smooth motion or anything. And maybe it would be if I updated it every 60 seconds or something. I don't know. Now you will see that it moved there, like, and that's the other thing that this map does, is if I'm kind of cruising around on the map, looking around, the minute that 12 seconds is done, it's going to pan me to wherever that marker is. So it'll go quick, and it just kind of shoots me over there. So, and then you can also see that it's updating kind of quickly right now. Remember the set interval, if it gets behind, it has to hurry and just kind of catch up. So if it lags a little bit, then sometimes it'll hurry and refresh them multiple times. It's kind of weird how it works, but oh well, that's just kind of how the set interval works, is it'll get behind a little bit. But I found like 3 to 5 seconds is a good interval for this. You know, it just kind of slowly moves, and you can see that it's moving, and you can see that it's updating. Okay, so for the JavaScript side of things, that's it. We're good. So now the last part of this assignment is just to style this up a little bit, make it look a little more pretty. I'm going to do that. I'm not going to add a background or anything. All I'm going to do is just move these on top of the map so you can see them, and so it looks like it's more part of the map here. So again, if you're good with the CSS, you can stop now. I'm just going to show you quickly how I styled this up. It's nothing too amazing, but if anything, it'll give you an idea of how to position things around and how to put this on top of it. Okay, so feel free to take off if you're good with the JavaScript portion. So I'm going to say position absolute, So this is for the title. Left 50%, so I'm just going to center it again. I think I did this in the other video. And I'm going to give it a width of 220. And because I want it to be right in the middle, I'm going to offset it half of the width. Okay, now, right, there it is. I may have to make it a little bit wider. We'll see. Now, if I say top here, like 30 pixels, you can see that it's going behind the map. Don't want that, so we can say z-index and give it a large z-index, and that should put it in front, which it does. Okay, now because the map's going to be continuously changing, this might start to get hard to read, so I'm going to add a kind of like a stroke to it, but it's actually a shadow. It's a text shadow. And I'm going to give it, can't remember exactly how, one of this is the spread, like how big the shadow is. Well, let's see if we can figure it out. And the other one is how far away it is from the original text, and I'm going to make it white. Okay, so the first number is how far away it is. So you can see it, you can see some text like right there. And that's because it's really far away from the original text. So if I say just 1 here, it should, yep, it makes that shadow just be 1 pixel away. So it looks a lot more like a shadow. And I'm pretty sure this is the spread, like how big the stuff gets, or maybe not. Maybe one is how far left it goes, and the other one is how far from the top it goes. I don't know, I'm guessing that. But all I really want is 1 pixel white. That's going to give it kind of a stroke around it, so the text is going to be easier to see on darker backgrounds. Okay, it's the text align center, so it centers itself inside the div. Okay, looks a little bit better that way. I'm going to say font size 20 pixels, and then font weight is going to be bold. I do not like that font, so Google Fonts. I think I just used Roboto. Roboto's pretty sweet, so I just grabbed that. Add import, grab the add import, and I just put it up here at the top. Okay, and then to apply it, I use that. Okay, I think that's about it for the styling. But I'm gonna have to make it a little bit wider. So we'll say maybe 280-ish. See what that does. Yep, that's what I want, is to kind of have 2 different lines. Okay, so now I made that 280. I got to come over here and make this -140, so it'll be directly in the middle. Okay, so a cool little title. Looks a lot better with Times New Roman. Now I just want this to be like right underneath the title. So I am going to be styling this very, very similarly, if that's a word. Okay, and I gave it a class of location down here. Save that. So left is going to be right. Width, the width is probably going to be a little bit smaller. I actually think it's going to be around like 120. I do not want the text align to be center. I can't really see it right now, so let's change that top value. So top's going to be 100. Okay, well, I guess it's kind of cool being centered. I don't know. No. I don't know. Let's lower the size though. Font size I had at 16. mean, I could keep it centered, but nah, I don't think I'm going to, so I'll get rid of that. Okay, so now they're both kind of left justified there. Okay, and the width is, well, I already got it that. Okay, so the width is 120, so that needs to be -60 to center it. There we go. And that looks good. Keep the text shadow, looks good, looks good. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's really a whole lot more. I guess I could maybe move it up a little bit. So the top could be more like 80. I don't know. Again, it's up to you to kind of figure out how you want to style it. That was too much. Okay, I don't know. You can put a background in here as well. And I don't know if you care, but I didn't even really know. Like, I actually saw some movies with this in it, and I didn't even realize it was the space station. But this is what it looks like. It has these big old solar panels and stuff. And yeah, I realized that, holy crap, that movie I saw, they were on the space station, and they actually did a really good job at recreating it. So this is what it looks like, which is kind of cool. And that's why I kind of like this icon here, because it looks like it, right? So anyway, so that's it, guys. Keep it up here. There's the code if you want to take a look at it again. Get this done, get it uploaded. Have an awesome day, and maybe I should make this a little bigger. But anyways, yeah, hope that helped. It's kind of cool to be able to see where the heck the International Space Station is now. So have an awesome, awesome day / week, life, and we'll see you around.